Welcome to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast, a fascinating and inspiring journey into the world of venture capital and startups. Each episode offers masterclasses and entrepreneurial stories from some of the top minds in the innovation economy. Get ready to unlock new ideas and gain valuable advice for how to thrive as an innovator and an investor. On this episode of Extraordinary Pursuits, we talk with Jan Heybroek, a partner and advisor with TechCXO. He's called on by investors, boards, and senior management teams to assist as a fractional and interim CEO, COO, and CRO. TechCXO is the pioneer in providing companies with these kinds of on-demand senior executives. Jan is a serial entrepreneur with a successful exit under his belt and 2 decades of C-suite experience. In this episode, he takes a backwards look to give listeners the benefit of his hindsight. He'll share 4 things he wishes he'd known earlier in his entrepreneurial journey, why conviction in a market opportunity is a necessary starting point, how to confirm product market fit, why thinking ahead is a critical skill, and the central role of perseverance for any founder. Let's get started. Jan, thanks for joining us. You are a seasoned entrepreneur and now an executive consultant, an interim team member for other fortunate startups and SMBs via TechCXO. I would love it if you would take just a couple of minutes to give us a little bit of insight into your background as a founder, particularly in the pharma and life sciences sectors.
Sure. Thank you, Rachelle, for inviting me, and excited to be here and to share kind of the entrepreneurial journey. It's something that many people aspire to. Quite a few try it, and then there's a lot of failure too. So we'll talk a bit about that as well, and the things that you can do as an entrepreneur to prevent failure. Awesome. So my background is one of kind of trial and error. Started in med school, finished med school, but I'm not a doctor. Went into pharmaceutical sales, launched a pharmaceutical product in the cardiovascular space in the Netherlands. Then went to business school in Rotterdam and Ann Arbor in Michigan. And then joined what was then the largest pharmaceutical company in the Netherlands, Organon, to launch an antidepressant globally. That was actually really my first exposure to having a long view and the importance of marketing, the importance of commercialization, the importance of networks. And from that, started to work for more and more, say, entrepreneur-led organizations, smaller organizations, ultimately to make the journey through the United Kingdom for 3 years and then to the US in 2003. So my family and I came over in March of 2003. Running a medical education company in the Atlanta area. That was the reason to come to Atlanta, and we've loved being here ever since. And then in 2007, decided, I'm 40, I'm here on a visa, but I was approved for a green card, 3 small kids, the youngest one being less than a year old. A perfect time to start the business. I'd tried it twice before, both in the Netherlands and the UK, and it never really was, I would say, clicking to the degree that I felt it clicked. And the market was giving me a lot of opportunities in the oncology, hematology space, which allowed to my vision to actually, what is a good English word, to fructify, to come to fruition ultimately. I had the opportunity to build, scale the company. I worked with a number of really talented people to get it to a point of an exit in 2021 and stayed on with the acquirer for a couple more years. And then in June of 2023 said, you know what, I think there's talents to be shared with other entrepreneurs. And that's why I joined TechCXO.
My goodness. Okay, let me get this right. So medical degree, business degree, entrepreneur, dad, sales experience, pharma experience, successful exit. I have a feeling that this is going to be an incredibly valuable conversation on a lot of levels. That is an incredible trajectory. And you kind of touched on a little bit of like when you became an entrepreneur. But I think most people who have been founders have been able to sort of look back and recognize that there's always been sort of that seed inside, that sort of, it's like authors say that they have a book inside them. Entrepreneurs will say, or founders will say, I have a business inside me. At what point in your life do you think that you sort of recognized that you had that natural tendency that, maybe gave you the confidence when the time was right to take that step forward?
Really good question, really difficult to answer. The nurture versus nature type of situation with an entrepreneur. I think having talked to many entrepreneurs, there is an incredible drive, an incredible pursuit. They are typically wanting to address a problem that they have faced, and they want to challenge themselves. But there's something that needs to unlock. So that's kind of the nurture part. Something happens in their lives that then allows them to unlock that talent. And in my case, it was one where I had been inside large corporations. The company I led, that was the reason for us coming to the US, was bought by a large corporation, a Fortune 500 corporation. And that is not my happy space, to be honest. And it's not the not working together with people. That's important. That's important everywhere. But it is the ability to create something and then build it and drive it to the vision that you've got together with others, and find a solution for a problem that you perceive. That was really what was ultimately triggering me. I think I'm triggered by complex questions, complex challenges that have not yet found a solution. And that was it. That kind of the opportunity was just right. And when head in.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. And I think there's so much bravery that goes into saying, I see this complex problem. I am willing to be the one to step forward to try to solve it. And then, to have the background to know how to build the business around it, right? It's not just enough to see the problem that needs solving. It's the ability to be as innovative and thoughtful with the business structure as it is with the solution to the problem that you're seeing, that ultimately kind of comes together to create a successful endeavor. So I think what I'd love to do is to sort of transition a little bit into a conversation around some of that business acumen. We talked when we were, preparing around the importance of market opportunity. And I think in particular, as you've told your story, you were able to see market opportunity through coming, into it from a larger organization, and to see that there were problems that needed to be solved. But talk to us a little bit about at what point in the entrepreneurial pursuit does identifying market opportunity, not just a big problem to solve, but a market opportunity for that big problem, where does that come into play? What did you learn, and what guidance could you give?
I wanted to go back to something that you said in the early part of your question, which is really, business acumen. Probably yes, but do you know the solution to everything? And that's a wholehearted no.
Right.
And I cannot tell you how often we had to adjust course, or even in the 15 years of my running the business, pivot. I think we pivoted 4 times in terms of both the value that we delivered and how we delivered it. You have to kind of, think on your feet sometimes and really adjust. Going back to that market opportunity, obviously there needs to be a market opportunity, because if there isn't, you're not going to be successful. But there is a way to unlock it, and it is talking to many people. I think ultimately it's talking to a lot of folks, both the people that are very much in the business, in that industry, as well as those that are around it, to get kind of a good sense of what that market opportunity is. In our case, we really actually went into an opportunity that didn't exist yet. So we spent a lot of time trying to build the market. Elements of that market exist for sure, but I think our approach was unique and probably a few years too early. So we spent a lot of time actually developing the market, which in hindsight, I would have preferred not to and actually develop the company. But that's just how it is. In the space of oncology, hematology, one of the things that was really critically clear was that we were moving into a space of what they call personalized medicine. So where it becomes a marketplace where it's no longer one big drug or two big drugs that are going head to head, but where it's a lot of different drugs that need the support of, in our case, market insights. In the case of what we were delivering as a company, physician engagement, and knowing basically the vagaries and the intricacies of each market. When you're thinking about breast cancer, lung cancer, it's no longer, certainly on the medical side, it's not one disease. It's 13, 14, 15 different diseases based on the genetic profile of the patient. And each market has its own kind of approach. Each market has to solve that problem. Where we came in as a company was we were able to deliver very much on the basis of our knowledge of these clinicians, the right clinician for that opportunity. So that was what our core skill set was, and that was what we mined ultimately for as a business and as delivering services into the life sciences community.
Wow. When you said complex problem, I mean, you were not kidding. That is incredibly complex. I think you mentioned something that I would love to just pause on for a second, and you talked about those pivots. And I would imagine that to some extent that's driven by the stage of the business. I would imagine to some extent it's driven by market conditions and externalities. What were, if you don't mind my asking, some of those inflection points that led you to decide that a pivot was necessary? And is there any guidance that you can give to a founder that is maybe in that rapid scaling phase and seeing that a pivot is necessary, but they already have figured out how to do one thing, so moving into something else is really scary. So can you just talk a little bit more about that pivot decision-making process?
Sure. I don't want to get into too many specifics around the pharmaceutical market or life sciences, because then it gets really technical and that's not of benefit to your listeners and your viewers. However, I think what is really important is we encountered a number of changes in the market that led us to no longer be delivering what we were delivering. That was one. The other part of it is you've got the capital market. Our capital market closed in 2008, 2009. And right at the time where we needed to seek capital and we couldn't find that capital. So market and company circumstances, pushed us to change tack and do something else. I think that it is really important that you understand how you're creating value for your customers, what the value creation process is, and if that value changes at your client side, at your customer side, is there another way that you can reorganize your processes to deliver on that value, not losing the core essence of who you are, the core proposition that you've got, the core talent that you have? But can you basically change it so that you actually are delivering value to your customer today? So in our particular case, we built a subscription model, and that was pretty successful in the beginning, to the point that we needed to scale up because we couldn't sell within a different disease area anymore. Not the pretense, but basically we had experience in this disease area. Now that translates to another disease area. Our customer says, yeah, that's not good enough. What do you have available today? Mm-hmm. And we couldn't deliver on that. We didn't have the capital to build that up to scale. So we pivoted towards a services model, consulting model, where we could immediately deliver on the requirements of our customers. In the meantime, building up those resources, and then we could pivot again to more of a subscription model. In fact, it became more of a hybrid model, partly subscription, partly services. And those were some of the pivots that we made.
That's really fascinating. And, I think that for a lot of the founders with whom we work as a venture team, there are those conversations, around the business model and aligning the business model to the audience, that's being served. And, I think that sometimes that shift is really difficult, particularly if you are going from, a subscription model to, something different, or like a product-led marketing model, something like that, and, you've mentioned taking in counsel from outside sources. How did you gauge the value of the guidance that you were getting as you were making some of those decisions? That had to be hard, particularly as you got further and further into the business and had worked longer and longer on it.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I would do it again, I would gain twice, three times as much counsel as what I got in the beginning. I did not listen enough.
Okay.
I thought I not knew it all, but I knew kind of where I wanted to go, and I had a good sense of how I wanted to get there, but I probably didn't get enough counsel. So in 2016, when I became a member of Entrepreneurial organization, they offer a lot of, I would say, ways to listen to counsel, listen to advice, listen to experience, called experience share, where it's presented in a way that is not confrontational, or not where you get into an adversarial mode or into I need to defend my position type of mode. And it allows you to pick kind of the gold nuggets out of each conversation that are really relevant to you. So in part, it is technique, in part, it is process that actually unlocks that opportunity to learn, to listen. I would say that I have listened far better since, not only to people in my industry, but also to people that have similar experiences or have industries or work in industries that deliver services to the entrepreneurial, the financial, the venture-backed financial services, legal counsel, the tax counsel, because there's a number of different ways. One of the things I know in the past, if I had an opportunity to do it all over again, I would not start as an LLC, but I would start as an incorporation. Taxed as an S corp, because I would avoid the ability of capital gains. Once you have an exit, well, I was too late to make that change. So when I sold, of course, you get into the capital gains situation. So those are a lot of the lessons learned. I think when we spoke in preparation, I likened to sailing to some degree. Yeah. When you have the harbor that you leave, which is basically your past experience. That's what you know. And you have a vision to where you want to go, which is the harbor that you want to go to. That's your end state. That's your end goal. What you don't know, and you can predict to some degree, is the headwinds, the currents that you're going to face, how you need to tack, how you need to change course to basically still have that North Star that you want to reach. And so that is, for me, that lesson of kind of knowing what you know and embracing the uncertainty in the moment to get to where you want to go has been that's been something that I've embraced and I'm an advocate of.
Yeah, no, that's really wonderful. And and I think coming from the venture side, and also having been an entrepreneur, I think that one of the things I hear is that surrounding yourself with an advisory organization, whether it is like an entrepreneurial organization that serves as a bit of a board, or having a board itself, or having a trusted venture team at your side, that isn't just going to say like, okay, here's capital, here's your boat, good luck, but I'm going to get on the boat with you, and if we need to change course, I'm going to help you with resetting the sails and and all of that. I think
one of the key learning moments was I brought in 2019 a partner, an outside partner that provided capital and helped us to scale, and he was experienced in selling companies. So was one, we decided then, not only are we pursuing an exit strategy, but we now know when the exit strategy is. The first question he said to me once he'd made the investment is, okay, where are you going to invest in? And as an entrepreneur, you're so focused, or at least I was so focused on landing that investment, because then I could actually think about what next. But for him, it was already kind of not a given, but more or less he was going to invest, but he needed to know what he was investing in. And so that opened up the mind, like, okay, I really have to think about it. So it wasn't something that I prepared for, but it's something that I learned along the way. And you go like, aha, that's a lesson learned. Let's not make that same mistake again, and be prepared for it. So that's one of those experiences that I can share with other small business owners and entrepreneurs is, it's great that you are thinking that this is not going to be a lifestyle business. This is an exitable business. How are you going to pursue that?
Yeah, no, that's really, really brilliant guidance. I think I would love to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit around, something that you mentioned earlier, which was having a long-term vision. I think that as an entrepreneur, it's a balancing act, right? You have to have that sort of short-term ability to see what's directly in front of you and the long-term ability to see, is this an exitable business if that's the goal? Or is this a business that could, eventually IPO? Or, is it a long-term business that will have family succession? But just how, as an entrepreneur, how would you tell other entrepreneurs to think about that balance between the short-term and the long-term?
Mm-hmm. I think the term that we use a lot within the entrepreneurs organization is kind of working in your business or working on your business, and finding the opportunity to work on your business, because it's so easy to get sucked into the day-to-day in your business. I would say metrics and dashboards, really, really critical. So make sure, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a system, make it your own system, or there's other systems out there that you can utilize, but be very intentional about the things that you're doing, measure it, and make sure that you then track. I'd say accountability. It's so easy to push something off, especially when you don't have a boss or a perceived boss as an entrepreneur, right? Who is your boss? Maybe it's the board, maybe it's your capital partner, or maybe it's your spouse, or it's yourself. But how can you create that accountability, an accountability that works for you? Because I think it's not dissimilar from, I would say, business development. That one of the hard lessons I learned there was, I'm very goal oriented. So I am going into a business conversation thinking I'm going to score that goal. How often does that happen? That's almost, and the person that I work with likened it to baseball. How often are you hitting a home run? Not that often, right? And we can even be a very successful batter with a batting average that is less than 50%, below 500. So it's many singles and doubles that ultimately, and tries at bat, that will get you to that success. So that principle for business development, that principle for building a business is exactly the same. The goal is, and then you can take the baseball analogy, is winning. And what that winning is maybe it's winning to get that exit that will float you for the rest of your life, or it is the personal satisfaction of legacy, or it's your name on a building, or whatever that is. But define that, be intentional about every single step that you make towards it, and measure and be accountable to yourself. And you'll need, I think that most of us, certainly I, need help along the way. Help from other entrepreneurs, help from coaches, help from, and you can fill in the blanks, whatever is, I think, is the best, targeted help for you in that situation. And listen.
I think that's great counsel for just about anyone in just about any, sector. But I love the idea of, if I'm hearing you correctly, kind of saying, okay, this is the end goal. I'm going to reverse engineer the things that matter here. So, we talk a lot about KPIs, and I think that there are probably some that are very standard across, any business. There are things you have to be measuring, and your performance indicators. But if you're building a culture of accountability and you are building a path to a particular outcome, that other side of the sailing journey, you're probably able to reverse engineer and set some accountability metrics that you measure, right? Measuring what matters. And that is keeping you accountable and probably keeping you prepared for those pivots that you might not see coming, but that will need that historic information and those patterns.
Yeah, and the systems to be ready for those pivots too.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very good example, I think, of that is in 2019, as I mentioned, my partner and I decided, no, we're going to exit, and we actually landed on a time frame, 4 to 5 years. So 2023, 2024, we are going to exit when we are going to do everything that we need to do to exit. So we had a number of strategies in place. One we call our pufferfish strategy. We want to show bigger than who we are, particularly on the marketing side.
Yes.
We needed to have everything in the cloud. We needed to have everything in scalable platforms. We needed to have basically transparency in a lot of things, the KPIs, all of that. And we were on track to kind of get ready for a process, in 2023. Lo and behold, April 2021, I get a call from a banker that I had forged a relationship with for a long time. And he said, are you open to talk with a potential buyer? And they just missed out on an opportunity, and they think that you are a very good fit. Do you want to talk? Of course I want to talk. There's always, particularly in such a qualified situation, you want to talk. 3 weeks later, we had our LOI, and 2 months later, we had completed our due diligence. And we were only able to complete that due diligence because we truly had those systems in place, et cetera. Were we ready to sell in 2021? No, not according to our own timeline.
Right.
But we kind of were.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, what to me speaks to the preparation, the mindset of preparing, and then you have to be opportunistic along the way.
Yeah, that is a really good segue into sort of, I think, where we will begin to close this conversation. You talked about being ready from a structural standpoint, a process standpoint, faster than you thought that you needed to be. But what about mentally, emotionally? When you talk about being an entrepreneur, and there is an intangible there, and there is something about being a founder that is as much in your gut and your heart as your head. Talk a little bit about how that process was for you as a founder, mentally and emotionally.
Reflecting on it backwards, I could probably point out the true challenges in the moment. Often you don't know. You're kind of stubborn and pig-headed. You have to be, because you have to persevere. Yeah. And you keep that because you don't really have a boss. Who is your boss? Who is kind of your lead? You have to have that internal drive and that goal that you're pursuing, because otherwise, why would you be the one that gets up at 5 and at the office at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever it is, whatever it takes to get it done, because nobody's telling you to do it. You have someone, it's driven by yourself. So I think mentally prepared, once you take that step to become an entrepreneur, you probably are or have to be mentally prepared. Emotionally, I don't know that anybody can truly prepare you for the roller coaster ride that you're going to go on. I mean, who would take 14% odds that you're going to be successful in 5 years with a profitable business? Research shows that it's 14% of businesses that get to that. That's not as good as playing the odds in the casino. And we only do that for leisure and once every so often. And it is a roller coaster ride. I think and I would say physically, I go back to kind of having the self-discipline as a young dad. So I had a lot of kids drain energy or give energy, emotional support system with the family, really important, friends, play the occasional tennis match, which helps too. And for the rest, I think a lot, it's that mindset, you commit to it, and then you just roll with the punches.
Persevere,
exactly.
Persevere. Yeah. I love that. And I love, something I hear as you're talking is there's a tremendous amount of balance as well. I hear you talk a lot about, taking inspiration and counsel from external sources, but then driving forward from an internal locus. And I think that, that combination of internal and external is something that, founders often kind of have to check themselves on, where is that motivation really coming from? And, is that internal locus of control preventing you from being able to listen to the external forces? Or is the external chatter getting in the way of your ability to drive forward with your internal locus of control? And I think it's really admirable, hearing that balance in you. And so I sort of close with sort of a two-sided question, right? When you are someone who seems to be built the way you are, my guess is that those instincts, that ability to listen, that perseverance, that ability to see a new horizon doesn't really go away. So, talk about what your next horizon looks like for you.
Really good question. Don't know, honestly. And I think that's the search to impart that you go through. I think, again, at NEO, we have this blind side perspective, is working on your blind spot or the blind side, the things that you don't know about yourself or others don't know about you. And I think that's been a journey for the last couple of years. And that's one of the things I'm working on. I'm really looking forward to be part of other founders' journey in this and, instill the life lessons and the experience share that I can along the way, help them to become successful and in that pursuit, be successful myself. And learning more, I would say, particularly very tactically around, for instance, the life sciences industry in the Atlanta market. Atlanta is one of the areas that has 3-4 medical schools, a lot of technical development. But what is interesting is when you look at the life sciences industry, it is not well represented in the market. So that for me is like, why is that, and how can I be of assistance there? I've always had my back towards the business side of Metro Atlanta, and not because I wanted to, because that's where my clients weren't there. Sure. So I think that's the other part that I'm pretty passionate about.
I love that. So it's very cool to see that you have been able to sort of take all of these learnings and shift to being that voice of counsel, to being that advisory voice. And I hope that the entrepreneurs who have the benefit of sitting across the table from you are open enough and wise enough to listen well as you sort of counsel, because, given the conversation we've had today, I think that your voice is one of great knowledge. And I think earned knowledge has its place, but learned knowledge is sometimes much easier. So thank you for sharing your earned knowledge with us and for the way that you are helping other founders with your experience. And I just really appreciate all of the learnings that you've given to us today. How can people find you, reach out to you if they want to know more about how you support entrepreneurs through TechCXO?
Well, thank you, Rachelle, for the opportunity to be here and to share my experiences, just in as one experience. So, but I thrive on the I'd say the journeys of others too. So that's one of the things, working together with people, right? About which is really key. So people can reach me through techcxo.com and look for my name, Jan Heybroek, LinkedIn, Jan Heybroek, or jan.heybroek@techcxo.com.
And that's Jan with a J.
That is with a J, yes. I was given that name back in the Netherlands, and they never thought, my parents, that I would be over in the States. So it's J-A-N, yes.
Well, we're glad you're here, Jan, J-A-N, and thank you again for today.
Thank you so much, Rachelle.
Thanks for listening to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast. Check the show notes on our blog for the resources we discussed. You can find Extraordinary Pursuits on your favorite audio platform. Be sure to subscribe to the BIP Ventures YouTube channel and connect with us on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram so you get all the stories, learnings, and ideas for ways to thrive in the innovation economy. And if you liked this episode, be generous. Share it.